Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
The 2022 Qatar World Cup has kicked off, and the Netherlands and Senegal faced off in Group A. In a tactical fixture, the Netherlands were able to come out on top 2-0 thanks to late goals by Cody Gakpo and Davy Klaassen. The XG indicated that chance quality was roughly even, 1.11 to 0.78. But what tactics did we see from both nations? In this video we take a quick look. If you're interested, this video and several others usually go up early for early access on Patreon, so if you want to check that out, head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple, and it helps to support the channel. After a slow first half, Louis van Gaal's tactical switch in the second saw Netherlands win the 3 points. In the first half, Senegal were not pressing particularly high up the pitch, and as a result, Van Gaal opted to use De Ligt as a more traditional right back, giving Dumfries even more scope to push up down the right hand side. So the Netherlands' shape could look like a traditional back four. So for the most part the Dutch would build up with two centre backs and De Ligt would operate in this right back position, whilst Blind maintained the width on the left hand side. As a result, Dumfries would have more scope to push higher up the pitch down this right hand side. And Senegal didn't mind this too much, as they were not looking to press, and Gaal would often push up alongside Dia in order to create a front two, whilst Diatta and Sarr defended fairly narrow. What this shape would do, with Dia and Gaal using their cover shadows to cover the ball into the midfield, was provide Mendy and Kouyaté a little bit more freedom to roam the areas in behind in the midfield, to make it more difficult for penetrative passes to be found without them applying pressure. This defensive shape was even more successful when Senegal were able to prevent the ball into Daley Blind, because Daley Blind is an elite progressive passer, so when he received the ball in these regions, he would be able to find men between the lines with his extensive passing range. Instead, if Senegal were able to force the Netherlands down the right hand side, De Ligt out of position would then have to drive up the pitch and look to make that same pass, or the ball would be moved on to Dumfries, who, unlike Blind, is more of an off-the-ball fallback. So for Senegal, the front two, including Gaal who had pushed up from midfield, would have the responsibility of looking to pick up the Netherlands' double pivot as much as they could. So down the right hand side, with De Ligt operating as a right back, there was the potential for an overload between these two and Janssen or Berghuis moving wide. However, as discussed, because of the front two covering the double pivots, Mendy and Kouyaté had a little bit more freedom. So when the ball did come wide, if De Ligt was looking to push forward, Mendy would be able to come out freely to close down the pass if Sarr hadn't done so before him. But despite Senegal looking to make it more difficult to play through the centre, the Netherlands could still look to overload this region at times. Primarily as Bergwijn, rather than operating strictly alongside Janssen, would look to drop into the midfield at times alongside Gakpo, so that they operated as dual 10s, meaning that they had a midfield box. However, if the forwards were disciplined, as well as the defensive midfielders, this would make it difficult for Netherlands to play through. In addition, Sarr and Diatta rarely defended extremely wide, especially during this first half. Instead, they were narrow picking up these positions, again looking to filter the ball wide. So, the central overload that the Netherlands were craving was much more difficult to achieve. But even in the first half, it should be noted that De Jong was a difference maker at times, as when he received in the midfield, he has the ability to go past a man. So, whether it was a forward or a midfielder looking to pick him up, if he was able to dribble past them, it would then mean that a defender from deeper on the pitch for Senegal would have to come and confront him, and this would now be opening up more room for the Netherlands' forwards in which to operate. But in the second half, we saw Van Gaal make some changes. We saw less of De Ligt operating as a traditional right back, and instead he moved into the right centre back position, meaning that the Netherlands were once again operating with a more traditional back three. One of the advantages it did give is if Senegal did look to press with their front two, they would now have the numerical advantage. But as we discussed, Senegal were not really too concerned with looking to press. Instead, it allowed the Netherlands to shift their build-up shape, so De Jong was now operating as the sole pivot, and Dumfries and Blind could push even higher up the pitch now, knowing that they had three centre-backs to cover them. Crucially, it now meant that Berghuis, rather than always having to be a second pivot alongside De Jong, could now push higher up the pitch as well, allowing Bergwijn to push higher up with Janssen as well. So the shape often looked like a 3-1-4-2. So here we see De Ligt operating deeper, De Jong being the crucial single pivot, Blind now pushing more aggressively high up the pitch, while still allowing the Netherlands to maintain a front two. So Senegal reacted defensively to this, and instead of operating with a front two, they now shifted to a more dedicated 4-1-4-1, which would look something like this, with their wingers now having to defend wider, potentially to deal with the wider and more aggressive wingbacks from the Netherlands. But crucially, with Bergwijn and Depay when he came on, willing to drop into the midfield, this midfield three of Senegal's could now be overloaded more easily, particularly with De Jong pushing high up. And we could also see men looking to push up into the half spaces to draw in the fullbacks, meaning that the wingbacks could also now be more free. So, this new shape from Van Gaal gave them more flexibility, as they could opt to overload the centre and play through the centre, or for Senegal to be more narrow, thus allowing them to have more space in the wide regions. With the Senegal midfield now having to defend much deeper as well, De Jong also had more room in which to operate as the single pivot with all the responsibility of progression. And it would be difficult for Senegal, as if they committed a man to him, this would mean an even bigger overload between the lines. And one thing that the Dutch did well, even in the first half, was always look to provide options in the box. Whenever a wingback had the ball wide, we would see the two forwards plus the far side wingback look to attack the box. But this new shape in the second half meant that this overload could be exaggerated even more, as now the more aggressive midfielders could join the front two in addition to the far side wingback. And this played a part in Gakpo's goal, as there was now an extra man high up the pitch. And Senegal had a different approach in possession compared to the Netherlands. When they had the ball deep, Senegal were composed on the ball, and the Dutch were much more aggressive in their press, with the centre forwards looking to go man-to-man against the centre backs. So Mendy had a more significant role to play during the build-up, as he would be the third man in order to create the 3 versus 2. And with the ball in deep areas, Senegal had a clear game plan, as Mendy was often the single pivot, whilst both Gaal and Kouyaté were made to push much higher up the pitch, in addition to both of the wingers. Mendy could receive if he had space, but Gakpo was often looking to sit on him. And from these situations, Senegal knew that they would have a numerical and physical advantage high up the pitch potentially. So Mendy or the centre backs would often look to go long immediately, particularly towards Sarr against De Ligt or Diatta against Ake. Either way, Senegal backed themselves in the aerial duels, and having so many men pushed high up would mean that they were in great positions to potentially win the second ball and then look to advance forward as a team. So this was the common occurrence, with the Dutch front two looking to go man-to-man against the centre backs, meaning that Mendy would have to be the third man. Mendy could be the single pivot, whilst both Kouyaté and Gaal would have to push much higher up the pitch. This would then create scenarios for Senegal where they could look to go much longer and get men around the ball to win the second ball and then look to advance higher up the pitch. And generally in open play, the Netherlands were looking to push higher up whenever it was possible, and this would mean there would be space behind the lines. And once again, with men pushed high up the pitch, Senegal would look to exploit the space created with longer balls, and Koulibaly, with his excellent passing range, would often look for Sarr running in behind in particular, as he had the pace advantage against De Ligt. And once he did get on the ball, this would sometimes result in 1v1s between Sarr and De Ligt, where Sarr was able to have some success, but it didn't lead to any goals. Overall, it was an understandably cagey encounter between the two group favourites. For the managerial tactical scores, neither side was great at creating chances, although Senegal's plan to contain the Netherlands was somewhat successful, meaning that Van Gaal earns a 5, while Cisse earns a 6 despite the loss. The Netherlands are now in a strong position, and Group A qualifying looks like it may come down to the game between Senegal and Ecuador. But what did you make of this match, and how far do you think both managers will go?
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.